Well, I've done some more work on the front and back shrouds here, and as you can see they are now in primer. This is an acrylic lacquer primer, which is I suppose a modern equivalent of the old nitrocellulose lacquers that they used to use. I like it because it's for several reasons. One, I've used it quite a lot over the last 30 odd years and I'm very familiar with it. It's also very forgiving. It's a single pack, so you just mix it with thinners. In fact, this is the product here. That's the primer I've just been using. So it's a single pack, and you mix it with a thinner. And this is a high build primer I've put onto this. As I say, it's very forgiving. If you get any dust in it, you can wet rub it back and buff it up, particularly with the top coat. Very easy to use. Overspray, of course I don't have a dedicated spray area, as you can see. It's just in the shed here. I don't have a dedicated spray area, so overspray is a nuisance. But what happens with this is because it flashes off so quickly, the overspray is really just a dust. So it can be cleaned and vacuumed up, but it does make leaves a very fine dust over everything. It's a beautiful day today, and I could have probably sprayed outside, but I decided to do it inside. So what I've done here is put on a coat of etch primer, because this is of course an aluminium shroud. So it's very important to get something to stick to it. So I put a coat of etch primer on, which is really just a mist coat, and then I've had there's 8 coats of high build primer here. There's acrylic lacquer primer in grey, as you can see. So the next step is to I've just got to change hands with the cameras for a second. The next step is to put a reveal coat on over the top of this primer. Now, what a reveal coat is basically is the same sort of paint, and this is the stuff I'm using, acrylic gloss black. It's not a water-based paint, it's exactly the same acrylic lacquer, automotive acrylic lacquer. And what I'm going to do is put a very fine mist coat of this over the top of this, and then I'm going to wet rub it all back so that it will show any imperfections, any dents, any little dents, any scratches, anywhere where I've put repair putty or filler. There's not a lot of filler in this. As I said before, it's pretty straight, but there are a couple of areas with very light filler where there were some scratches and where some repairs have been done on the front section before. So the idea is that once you put this over, I'll just spray a little bit on now if I can do it and hold the camera. So it's really just a very fine sort of mist coat like that. Of course, you have to use the same product because you don't want it to react at all, and it dries very quickly. So that just gives me a light shading. Now I can then wet rub this back, and I'll wet rub this back with about a 280 grit. I think we've gone a bit out of focus there. Okay, so you can see that just a very light finish. I might put it on a little bit darker than that, but that's the basic idea. So once we then wet rub that back with some 280 and a nice flat block, although of course with the compound curves you have to use a block that's got a little bit of curve in it, but with a nice flat block, wet rub it back, and then anything that is still scratched or any little imperfections or dents or little tiny bits in the paint or anything like that will show up as black dots. So the idea is you keep rubbing until you get rid of the black all over the whole thing. Once that's done, then what you've got is a very smooth flat finish on which to put some more on, and then I'll probably put another 3 or 4 coats of primer over the top, wet rub that back with a 400 and then a 600, and then I can put the top coat, the Old English White top coat, straight over the top. Very important to get a good primer base finish. The top coat will cut and polish beautifully, but if you've got any imperfections in the base, it will show up. So this is a good way of making sure that that doesn't happen. If I go through to the metal at all with any of this, I just grab the gun and whack a bit more primer on there. But it actually looks, as you can see, it's pretty straight. So that's the next step. Then when I've done that, the top coat goes over it. And I think that's probably about all I've got to say just at the moment. I've been a little bit busy and I haven't really had time to get out here, but it's taken me a lot of time just to knock little dents out of this and repair scratches and things. But fortunately, there was nothing nasty in it. So now I put that top coat on and I wet rub and take another film when that's done, I guess. Just one other thing I forgot to say when I was talking about the acrylic lacquer is that I like to use it because it's forgiving. I also like the finish it gives. I know a lot of people like to use 2-pack. I think my understanding is that 2-pack is isocyanic, so it's dangerous to use unless you've got a good fresh air system, filtering system. I also think you have to put a clear over the top, and it's not as easy to touch up. That's my understanding. The acrylic lacquer is very easy to touch up. You can put a clear over the top. I've done that a few times, but I tend to not do that so much anymore. It's not as poisonous. I mean, they're all a bit nasty to breathe in. You've got to wear, good protection, but it's not as poisonous as the 2-pack, and it's easier to touch up if you get a scratch or a mark in it of some sort. That's one of the reasons I use it, and that it looks right for the period. I don't tend to like cars that look, these cars anyway, that look too high gloss. Not sure if you can still buy acrylic lacquer overseas, but you can get it here in Australia still. And here are the front and rear shrouds with the reveal coat sprayed onto them. They're just placed on the car, not put there permanently, just because it's probably the safest place for them. So I'll take them off there and put them onto a jig that I've made and wet rub them back.